A 12-year-old human child single-handedly slaughtered 20 fully armored Vorta soldiers, sending their alien army screaming and fleeing in terror. "How is this possible?" Dr. Zoltan gasped, trembling hands gripping the edge of the desk as he watched the helmet cam footage replay the gruesome scene. That explosive took out a third of the squad in a single blast, and the boy, he just stood there, staring them down with that modified rifle. Dr. Creek leaned in, eyes wide. He moved too fast. They barely had time to react before he opened fire. 5 more dead in seconds. But what I don't understand is where a mere child acquired the skills to pull this off. The weapon modifications alone would require advanced engineering knowledge. On the screen, chaos erupted as the remaining Vorta soldiers scrambled for cover, their panicked screams nearly drowning out Commander Fornax's agonized moans. The wounded leader writhed on the ground, his shattered armor slick with dark blood. Jason Reyes, expression grim and determined, advanced on the enemy position, plasma rifle flashing as he fired shot after shot with deadly accuracy. "Look at him," Dr. Zoltan whispered, voice tinged with a mix of awe and horror. "No hesitation, no fear. It's as if he's been trained for this his entire life." Dr. Creek frowned, considering the implications. "You think human children undergo military training from a young age, but that's unthinkable. Vorta would never subject our young to such brutality." "And yet the evidence is right before our eyes," Dr. Zoltan replied, gesturing to the screen where Jason stood amidst the smoldering ruins and bodies of the vanquished Vorta squad. "We've gravely underestimated the humans, their capabilities, and their resolve. If we don't understand what drives them, what they're willing to do to protect their own, our entire invasion force could be at risk." The two scientists exchanged a loaded glance, the weight of their discovery hanging heavy in the air. They knew that the fate of the Vorta campaign, and perhaps the future of their entire species, hinged on unraveling the mystery of the human child soldier and the society that had forged him into a one-man army. For if they failed to adapt, to find a way to counter this unexpected threat, the Vorta would be the ones running for their lives. The helmet cam footage continued rolling, capturing the chaotic scene unfolding on the battlefield. The surviving Vorta soldiers, their confidence shattered and their ranks decimated, desperately attempted to regroup and mount a counterattack. They fired their plasma rifles wildly, hoping to hit the human child who had single-handedly turned the tide of the battle. But Jason Reyes was no ordinary 12-year-old. He moved with a grace and precision that left the Vorta scientists speechless. Dr. Zoltan leaned forward, his eyes widening as he watched the boy effortlessly dodge the incoming plasma bolts, his movements a blur of speed and agility. "Look at the way he anticipates their shots," Dr. Zoltan marveled, pointing at the screen. "He's not just reacting. He's predicting their actions. That kind of spatial awareness and tactical positioning takes our soldiers years to master." Dr. Creek nodded, equally impressed by the display of skill. "It's as if he's been training for this moment his entire life. But how is that possible? Human children shouldn't be capable of such feats." As the battle raged on, Jason continued his relentless assault, his modified plasma rifle flashing with each deadly accurate shot. One by one, the remaining Vorta soldiers fell, their armor shattered and their bodies lifeless. The boy moved through the battlefield like a wraith, unstoppable and unforgiving. By the time the smoke cleared, only 7 Vorta soldiers remained standing, including the wounded Commander Fornax. The once proud Vorta warriors, faced with the sight of their fallen comrades and the terrifying human child, lost all semblance of courage. They turned tail and fled, abandoning their commander and racing back to the safety of their dropship. Dr. Creek shook his head in disbelief. "I've never seen Vorta soldiers retreat like that. They're trained to fight to the last man, to never show fear in the face of the enemy. But this child, he's broken them." "It's not just his skill," Dr. Zoltan mused, his brow furrowed in thought. "It's the psychological impact of facing a human child capable of such violence. We've never encountered anything like this before. The shock, the confusion. It's no wonder they lost their morale." The two scientists exchanged a glance, the gravity of their discovery weighing heavily upon them. They knew that this incident was just the beginning, a glimpse into the untapped potential of human warriors. If a single child could inspire such terror in a squad of battle-hardened Vorta soldiers, what would an army of such individuals be capable of? "We need to study this further," Dr. Creek said, his voice low and urgent. "We must understand what drives these humans, what makes them so different from us. If we don't adapt, if we don't find a way to counter this threat—" Dr. Zoltan nodded, his expression grim. "Then the Vorta will be the ones running for our lives." The helmet cam footage continued, and the two Vorta scientists watched in stunned disbelief as the human child, Jason Reyes, approached the wounded Commander Fornax. Dr. Zoltan tensed, expecting the boy to execute the helpless Vorta leader in cold blood. But instead, Jason knelt down beside Fornax, his expression shifting from grim determination to one of concern. "What is he doing?" Dr. Creek asked, leaning closer to the screen. Dr. Zoltan shook his head, equally perplexed. "It appears he's helping him." Jason retrieved a medkit from a nearby building, his movements swift and purposeful. He opened the kit and began treating Fornax's wounds, applying pressure bandages and a tourniquet with a skill that belied his young age. "Look at that technique," Dr. Creek marveled. "He's administering first aid like a seasoned medic. Where did a child learn such advanced medical procedures?" Dr. Zoltan rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Perhaps it's part of their training, but why save an enemy commander? Is it a display of human compassion or a strategic move to gather intelligence?" "Maybe both," Dr. Creek suggested. "Humans are known for their complex moral codes, which sometimes seem at odds with their military objectives. This boy appears to embody that duality." As they watched, Jason finished stabilizing Fornax and began to interrogate him. The boy's demeanor shifted once more, his voice taking on a firm, authoritative tone as he questioned the wounded commander. "Listen to those questions," Dr. Zoltan said, his eyes widening. "He's asking about our military structure, our technology, things no ordinary child should have knowledge of." Dr. Creek nodded, equally impressed. "He's displaying a remarkable ability to switch between compassion and intimidation. It's as if he's been trained in both combat and interrogation techniques." The scientists fell silent, absorbing the implications of what they had just witnessed. The human child's actions had thrown their understanding of human behavior into question, revealing a complexity and adaptability that they had not anticipated. "This incident showcases the multifaceted nature of human behavior," Dr. Creek said, breaking the silence. "They are capable of great violence, but also of mercy and strategic thinking. It's clear that we cannot predict their actions based on our own cultural norms." Dr. Zoltan agreed, his expression pensive. "We must study them further to understand the depths of their capabilities and the motivations behind their actions. If we fail to grasp the true nature of these humans, we may find ourselves facing an enemy far more formidable than we ever imagined." The helmet cam footage continued to roll as Dr. Zoltan and Dr. Creek watched the interrogation unfold. Jason's line of questioning shifted, probing deeper into the Vorta's military capabilities. "Tell me about your fleet movements," Jason demanded, his voice firm. "What are your primary weapon systems, your tactical strategies?" Commander Fornax, despite the pain of his injuries, met the boy's gaze with defiance. "I will not betray my people," he growled through gritted teeth, "no matter what you do to me." Dr. Zoltan leaned back, a hint of admiration in his voice. "Impressive. Even in the face of such adversity, Fornax remains loyal to the Vorta cause. Our conditioning and training are not easily broken." Jason, however, seemed undeterred by the commander's resistance. He leaned in closer, his eyes narrowing. "I know more about your culture than you think," he said, his tone taking on a calculated edge. "Your honor, your sense of duty. It's admirable, but it's also your weakness." Dr. Creek's brow furrowed as he listened to the boy's words. "He's using psychological manipulation tactics," he observed. playing on Fornax's cultural values to unsettle him. How does a human child possess such knowledge of our society? As the conversation continued, Jason's questions became more pointed, his understanding of Vorta culture and military structure becoming increasingly apparent. Fornax, his resolve beginning to waver, struggled to maintain his composure. Then, in a moment of vulnerability, the commander let slip a crucial piece of information. "The offensive on the human colony," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "It's set to begin in 3 days." Jason's eyes widened, the significance of this revelation not lost on him. Without hesitation, he reached for a concealed device on his wrist, relaying the intelligence to his superiors. Dr. Zoltan shook his head in disbelief. The boy's adaptability is remarkable. To think so quickly under pressure, to recognize the value of such information, it's a testament to the strategic mindset of human children. An urgent beep from the communication console interrupted Dr. Zoltan and Dr. Krieg's discussion. Dr. Zoltan tapped the blinking light, and a holographic message from Vorta High Command materialized before them. As they scanned the text, their eyes widened in disbelief. "The human colony," Dr. Krieg whispered, his voice trembling. "They repelled our offensive. Heavy casualties inflicted on our forces. A full retreat ordered." Dr. Zoltan slumped back in his chair, the weight of the news pressing down on him. How is this possible? Our military superiority should have guaranteed victory. "It was the intelligence provided by the human child, Jason Reyes," Dr. Krieg said, realization dawning on his face. The information he extracted from Commander Fornax, it changed everything. The scientist sat in stunned silence, the gravity of the situation sinking in. A single human child had altered the course of the war, his actions rippling through the fabric of their conflict like a shockwave. "This incident," Dr. Zoltan began, his voice heavy with concern, "it will escalate hostilities. The humans will become more aggressive, more determined to push back against our advances." Dr. Krieg nodded, his brow furrowed. "And what of the ethical implications? Using child soldiers in warfare, it goes against everything our society stands for. How can we justify such actions?" As they grappled with these questions, another message appeared on the console. Dr. Zoltan opened it, his hands shaking as he read the contents. "Jason Reyes," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "He was killed in action during the defense of the human colony." The room fell silent, the weight of this revelation pressing down on them. Dr. Krieg shook his head, struggling to reconcile his admiration for the boy's bravery with the tragedy of his death. "So young," he murmured, "to have his life cut short by the brutality of war. Is this the price of victory, the sacrifice of the innocent?" Dr. Zoltan leaned forward, his eyes distant. "War is a harsh mistress. It demands much from both sides, but to lose one so young with so much potential—" The scientists sat in contemplation, the somber reality of the conflict laid bare before them. They knew that the war between the Vorta and the humans was far from over, and that the true cost would be measured not just in resources and territory, but in the lives of the young and the brave. "This incident," Dr. Krieg said, breaking the silence, "it will have far-reaching consequences for both our peoples. It is a stark reminder of the need for greater understanding, for diplomacy." Dr. Zoltan nodded, his expression grave. "Indeed, the actions of Jason Reyes have forever changed the course of history. We must find a way to bridge the divide between our civilizations, to prevent more lives from being lost." As they ended their discussion, the two scientists were left with a profound sense of unease. The future of their civilizations hung in the balance, and the path forward was shrouded in uncertainty. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.